This video is sponsored by Mega Racer Quantum Rush. Mega Racer Quantum Rush is an open world racing game that can be played in both VR and non-VR modes. You can drift, boost, and compete your way through mega cities downtown. Whether it's solo or with your friends, you can enjoy countless mini games that you will come across naturally as you traverse and explore through the city. Things like street racing mode. See, they don't normally teach you how to bend corners like this. Like, watch me hit this mean drift. Oh. Wait, hold on. Stop. Come back. It seems I may have made a mistake when trying to hit that drift. I didn't even finish the race. They retired me. I'm just retired now. I got and I lost to Drake.
Drake? Drake?
They even have stuff like obstacle racing. Like I'm telling you, I really could have been like Baby Driver in my prime. Like, wait. That's why I said in my prime, right? In my prime. They have a crown battle mode, which is basically like a tag type of mode where you drive around trying to defend your crown, trying not to get touched as long as you can. There's a mini golf mode, which is a creative fusion between mini golf and racing, where just as the title suggests, you basically play mini golf, but you're pushing it with a car. And many more modes to choose from. And you can do it all in style, as you can customize both your character and your cart to your own unique style. So if this is something that interests you, then make sure to check out Mega Racer Quantum Rush using the link in the description. Thank you to Mega Racer for sponsoring this video, and let's get into it. Now, I'm aware I'm pretty late to talking about this situation, but this is something that I had to make a video on because this is something that I've been saying for years. And so, like, when all the news dropped, it kind of was just like, to me, it was just like, Xbox is failing. What else is new? And I do kind of want to apologize for my voice in this video. I'm a little sick, so yeah. But I think it's hit the point in Xbox's, like, lifespan, I guess, as a console, as a brand, where, like, even Xbox's greatest soldiers can't even defend this stupid-ass company anymore. Genuinely, the only people you will see defending Xbox and praising Xbox at, like, this current point is people with blue checks on X.com, Twitter, if you will. And they don't even mean the shit they're saying. They're just trying to get engagement because they know they're saying some stupid shit, and stupid shit gets attention. But we do gotta take it back a bit because Xbox didn't always used to be like this. Hell, I grew up playing with an Xbox 360, you know, Nintendo GameCube, Nintendo DS, Nintendo 3DS, Nintendo Wii, those kinds of things when I was, that's what I had as I was, throughout the years as I was progressing as a young lad. But during this time period, the Xbox 360 and the PS3 were damn near neck and neck, and you could definitely argue that Xbox was actually better during this time period. And so to help me out with this video, I brought in one of my friends, Bolt9236, who also has a YouTube channel, which I will leave in the description, where he talks about things like this, old games, new games, games in general. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, go check out his channel. But I'm gonna leave this part of the video up for Bolt to describe.
It's hard to believe nowadays with Xbox being a joke to most gamers, but Xbox used to really mean something. Xbox came into the gaming scene in 2001 in North America. While not being a huge sales juggernaut like the PS2, which sold over 160 million and is currently the highest selling console ever, it was still a huge success in the States, innovating on online multiplayer, making Halo a household name, and being the most powerful console at the time, with a beefy controller called the Duke. We had classic titles like the original Fable, we of course had Halo 1 and Halo 2, we had the original Splinter Cell on Xbox, Psychonauts, Breakdown, Chronicles of Riddick, and Jade Empire. Xbox would then make its next iteration with the Xbox 360 in 2005, which at the time was a very impressive leap forward not only in technology, but also how the Xbox brand would be perceived. The console was easy to develop for, which made third-party support a breeze, had a great online storefront that is iconic to this very day, and continued to push online multiplayer even further than the original Xbox did. Sure, it had its share of hardware issues, but nothing compared to what Sony would face with the PS3. The PS3 was a weird console in retrospect that took a long time for it to find its proper footing. Sony was overconfident from the success of the PS2 and thought they could do no wrong by releasing the base PS3 at a whopping $600 for the 60 gigabyte version, which if we carry the inflation to 2025 is a whopping, holy crap!
Yes, sirree. Thought about killing myself.
Compare the PS3's price at the time with the Xbox 360, which released a year before and only cost $400 at launch with the 20 gigabyte version. Even if you say, oh, well, the PS3 version had 60, you could buy additional add-ons to the Xbox 360 for really not that much, which increases storage. And at that time, 20 gigabytes was really all you needed, especially with cloud saving, which honestly was just a better deal, especially for what you were paying for. The PS3 also had no games at launch. You know know that joke that people make about the PS5 having no games? Well, that is the PS3 tenfold. This is all you got at the launch of the PS3, which was absolutely pitiful. Not to mention the PS3 was notoriously hard to develop for and caused many of its third-party games to run worse than it would on the Xbox 360. Xbox 360 was also backwards compatible with most of the Xbox library you wanted to play. It had superior online and had amazing games like Gears of War, Oblivion, and Perfect Dark. All were out before the PS3 could squeeze out any of its actual notable exclusives like Uncharted or God of War, which defined that platform. The Xbox 360 was peak Xbox, not only in its confidence, but in its game output. We had 4 Halo games, 4 Gears of War games, Alan Wake, Dead Rising, pretty much all of the Team Ninja games. We even had some decent JRPG support with Lost Odyssey and the Star Ocean games. They had a great third-party support system and is arguably one of the first consoles to support and distribute indie games with the Xbox Live Arcade. Platforms like the Wii kind of dabbled in it, as with the PS3, but the Xbox 360 was the first one to really make a huge push of it, especially with the Xbox Summer of Arcade. Of course, we also had Gamerscore, which to this day is an absolute bragging right. Here's mine. Jealous much? Not to mention that the Xbox 360 controller is near perfection. Xbox 360 was the console if you wanted quality games at a good price. It wasn't really until the tail end of that generation where Xbox went full in with the Kinect, and their exclusive output was not tapping into that Mountain Dew drinking demographic that they usually did, and that gave the PS3 and Sony the opportunity to recover, releasing banger games like Uncharted 2, Metal Gear Solid 4, Infamous 2, and Little Big Planet. A big part of PlayStation's comeback in that generation was support from Japanese studios and the quality of their exclusives going up. Looking at the sales numbers, the PS3 did end up selling more than the Xbox 360 in the long run, but if you ask anyone who was gaming around that time during that generation, they will tell you unequivocally that the Xbox 360 ruled that generation. Just don't ask the Nintendo fans. They might have a different answer. I still have a lot of nostalgia for Xbox and their history, and how they carved their own niche spot in the market. They were the consoles where you could buy games and play them with the boys. Their titles were mature and they were all pretty awesome. Splinter Cell, Halo, Gears of War, and Fable were all classic titles that stood the test of time. But I suppose it all had to end someday. I love the Xbox, but not so much anymore. Thank you, Colin, for letting me yap about the Xbox 360 and the Xbox a little bit, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
As Bolt explained, the Xbox 360 was an iconic console, not just because of its name, but because of how it earned that status. But eventually, the dark days began with the release of the PS4 and Xbox One. Now, when I was a kid, you would have me fucked up if you think I would ever buy a PS4 over an Xbox, especially with how good the Xbox 360 was. But I was also a stupid-ass kid. Around, I would say, 2014-ish, I said, fuck that shit, and bought a PS4. But it wasn't really necessarily because I was tired of not having any games on the Xbox, because at this time, when these two consoles released, Xbox actually had the better exclusives, if you ask me. And by exclusives, I literally just mean Sunset Overdrive and Forza. But as soon as around 2015 hit, like basically after infamous Second Son, PlayStation's absolute steamroll would begin. From 2015 to 2020, PlayStation completely left Xbox in the dust, dropping games like Spider-Man PS4 and Miles Morales, The Last of Us 1 and 2, God of War, Uncharted 4, Bloodborne, Detroit Become Human, Ghost of Tsushima, Ratchet & Clank, infamous Second Son, obviously, but you know, that came out in 2014, but besides the point, Shadow of the Colossus, Until Dawn, Days Gone, and Horizon Zero Dawn, which personally, I don't like those last two games that I mentioned, like, all that much, but they were both games that I kind of played for a little bit, didn't really vibe with, and got off of them. But again, they do have their fan bases, which are pretty decently sized. But with the Xbox One not only being marketed as more of an all-in-one home entertainment system at launch, with less of an actual focus on gaming, like, when they first revealed the Xbox One, the only games they ever really talked about was, like, they kind of hinted at a Halo, they talked about this garbage Son of Rome game or something that came out, Forza Motorsport 5, and Sunset Overdrive. And with the Xbox One being forced to come with the Kinect when it first launched, and it being priced at $100 more than the PS4, basically following in the PS3's bad footsteps, and the fact that Xbox already lost a huge amount of respect when they basically said that you're gonna always need to be online when playing games, and you cannot trade your games with friends or like with something like GameStop or something like that. They started to lose the console battle almost as soon as it began this generation. Especially because at the end of the Xbox 360's lifespan, they were slowing down when it came to exclusivity, like quality, when PlayStation was just kind of starting to ramp it up. And Xbox did eventually cave into their angry fans and didn't follow through with some of these dumb decisions. But when the games from Sony started rolling out, that was one of the final nails in the coffin. And during this era, Xbox had its fanboys, don't get me wrong. And you know, even just a year ago, you still had people swearing that Xbox was an actual competitor to Sony, and it was like right up there with them. And to most people with a brain, these people were genuinely delusional. Like, the only real argument you could have made for Xbox was Game Pass, which started off pretty weak when they first introduced Game Pass as like a thing, but eventually it turned into a great deal. I mean, especially when the Xbox started releasing their cheaper models like the Series S and the Xbox One S, they were a real contender for the people who wanted to get, like, you know, a cheap gaming experience, which in this economy, it's understandable for a lot of people. But as we'll discuss later, even having that cheaper option, it didn't really do Xbox too much good. With the release of the PS5 and Xbox Series X, this was the time for Xbox, just like Sony, to try and regain some footing that they lost all the way back in the PS3 era. And did Xbox do that? No, they continued to destroy their brand even more. Around 2024, the Xbox Series X was struggling. First of all, the console launched with like basically nothing. And you even had Xbox fanboys saying that the PS5 has no games. Meanwhile, the PS5 had shit like Miles Morales as a launch title, which was on PS4, but besides the point, it was still Sony producing good exclusives in this time period. You had games like God of War Ragnarok, again, another game that was on PS4, but besides the point, like I said with Miles Morales, you had Stellar Blade, Spider-Man 2, Helldivers 2, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Horizon Forbidden West, Returnal, Astrobot, Final Fantasy 16, which I know is on PC, but we're just talking about the console space for right now. Obviously, PC is better than both, it doesn't matter. But these are all games that PlayStation had that Xbox players didn't have access to. Meanwhile, you had Xbox fans posting shit like this. This is fucking tragic. Xbox to this day still doesn't even have an exclusive game from one of their studios that was ever nominated for Game of the Year. In the 12 years that Jeff Keighley's Game Awards have been going on, imagine not getting a single nomination throughout that entire time period. And Game Awards aside, like, even if you want to talk about like quality, like award stuff aside, again, the only exclusive that Xbox really had that you could probably even argue is in the same ballpark as PlayStation's like best exclusives at the time was Hi-Fi Rush. And you know what they did with Hi-Fi Rush? Well, with its success, you would think, oh, they would put more faith in that studio. They would, you know, maybe give them a higher budget so they can make a sequel. No, what they did was they shut down the studio after it won multiple awards and got a nice little community of a following. And then the head of Xbox Game Studios, Matt Booty, which Xbox, you should have already known you fucked up when you hired someone named Matt Booty as your studio head. But besides the point, this fucking guy says directly the day after they shut down Tango Gameworks that they need more games like Hi-Fi Rush. Like, seriously, you cannot make this shit up. I could not write this shit if I wanted to. And not even a few months earlier, when Starfield was about like a week away from release, Xbox's poster child, Phil Spencer, came out saying shit like this.
But this idea that if we just focused more on great games on our console, that somehow we're going to win the console race, I think doesn't really lay into the reality of most people. Like 90% of the people every year who walk into a retailer to buy a console are already a member of one of the three ecosystem, and their digital library is there. This is the first generation where the big games that they're playing were games that were available last gen. When you think about Fortnite and Roblox and Minecraft, like the continuity from generation to generation is so strong. I see a lot of pundits out there that kind of want to go back to the time where we all had cartridges and discs and every new generation was a clean slate and you could switch the whole console share. That's just not the world that we are in today. There is no world where Starfield's an 11 out of 10 and people start selling their PS5s. That's not going to happen.
Is this serious?
Like, what he said there doesn't inherently not make sense, but he's completely missing the point. If you just stop competing and your focus isn't on games that are exclusive to your platform, then you give people no reason to buy your platform over another one. Like, this company had just completely lost the plot at this point. They were purchasing studio after studio only to release miss after miss, and even if they did come out with a solid game, it was probably only like a 7 out of 10 on a high end. Like, again, a game like Hi-Fi Rush is super rare for Xbox. And now, any exclusive that Xbox even has in like the past 5 years that could even be considered notable is on PlayStation, like Hi-Fi Rush, Indiana Jones, Ninja Gaiden 4, Gears of War, Oblivion, Doom the Dark Ages, even fucking Halo is gonna be on PlayStation. Like, do you know how sad that is? That would be like if PlayStation was to put God of War or Uncharted or Infamous on Xbox. It's like Halo is the reason the fucking Xbox brand exists. And Xbox knows this. They couldn't just come out and release the same console without, giving people incentive to buy their console over the PlayStation 2. That's why Halo was created. Like, all these games that could have given Xbox an actual catalog to somewhat compete with PlayStation, they're just nothing now. It doesn't matter. You can play them on both platforms. And listen, what Xbox is doing with these games is actually very consumer friendly, and you gotta respect it. Oh, wait. What's this? These motherfuckers raised the prices on anything and everything they could.
PlayStation's killing us. We need more games.
Raise the prices.
What? But there's no reason to buy an Xbox right now.
Close a game studio.
Dog, we need more games. Costco won't even sell us anymore.
Raise the prices again.
Are you smoking crack? What the fuck are you talking?
Xbox Series S and Game Pass. The only thing keeping this dumbass company afloat, and by afloat I mean like on a deflating raft in the middle of the ocean in shark-infested waters. These two things are now just completely worthless. If I was broke, why the fuck would I buy an Xbox Series S for Game Pass at this point? Like, I could understand it back when it was $100 cheaper than the base model PlayStation 5, and Game Pass was also cheap, but when PlayStation consoles now are not only cheaper or similarly priced, get better performance than the Series S, PlayStation also has objectively more to offer with games, and PlayStation Plus, the catalog, which is almost the same quality as Xbox's Game Pass right now, is $13 cheaper than Game Pass. This isn't even recent news either. The PS5 has been absolutely dogging the Xbox consoles in sales for the numerous reasons that I've already gone over in this video. And to be 100% honest with y'all, if Microsoft doesn't release an Xbox console when the PS6 comes out, I would not be surprised at all. And to be honest, it would just be in their best interest as a brand. Game Pass is not going to be profitable anymore. If you're straight up losing so many people that a fucking Microsoft website crashes because of how bad of a decision you just made, and you clearly have no interest in giving consumers any reason to not buy a PlayStation over an Xbox. Like, at this point, Xbox would be better off just trying to drop, I don't know, a diss track on PlayStation, trying to figure out any little bit they can about PlayStation studio heads to expose them. Because, like, when it comes to the console space, what do they have? Nothing. But on a serious note, this is a very sad situation. Why is this a sad situation, you may ask? Well, it's sad because PlayStation now has literally zero competition. And when big brands don't have competition, they start to get lazy. Thankfully, Sony hasn't reverted to what they did in the PS3 era, and they haven't really let their foot off the gas when it comes to the games they make. And while you could certainly point out a few instances where Sony made some dumb decisions, and I'm sure people will bring them up in the comments, or, situations like with Spider-Man 2, they forced Insomniac to rush production on that game just to meet a quota for the holiday sales. It's like these instances are bad, but they are not nearly enough to bring down PlayStation in the slightest in the grand scheme of things. The only people PlayStation is losing to, Xbox as a console in maybe the past 3 to 4 years are straight up just lobotomy victims or children's that just play whatever their parents buy them. But even then, it's a stretch because, like, what kid that's past the 3rd grade would go to their parents, see a game like, I don't know, Spider-Man 2 or any of PlayStation's exclusives and be like, yeah, Mom, can you get me an Xbox? I may have been a dumbass kid, but I wasn't that stupid when I was in 3rd grade. But speaking of competition, I guess now I should talk about the Steam machine, because this seems to be the only source of competition that could be coming Sony's way right now. And this could be very real because, as most people know, PCs are just better than consoles when it comes to gaming. And I mean, not even just with gaming, but literally with everything. If you have a PC, you have access to literally any game you want, any movie, TV show, you name it, you can probably get it on PC through maybe not always legal methods, but it's an option. You got things like emulation, etc. But the Steam machine is obviously going to be a better overall system than the PlayStation, but it still doesn't mean that PlayStation will ever be in the same boat as Xbox. I mean, for one, the Steam machine is definitely going to be $150 to $200 more expensive than the PlayStation consoles. If it's not, I would be genuinely surprised. And they also won't have access to PlayStation exclusives right away, just like PC users now. So while Sony will definitely have some competition, they aren't going anywhere anytime soon. They will still be at the top of the totem pole when it comes to this, mid-budget console kind of budget range. And I know some people might mention Nintendo as a competitor to PlayStation, but not really. I mean, the only reason you would ever buy a Nintendo Switch is to play Nintendo exclusive games. Any other non-exclusive games, you would just be playing that on PlayStation or a PC. Because obviously those platforms have more games, and even when they do share games that, like, they have the same games on their platforms, nobody is playing Call of Duty or, I don't know, Mortal Kombat or any other AAA game that, like, is on PlayStation and a Switch, who the fuck is willingly playing, I don't know, Arkham Knight or Arkham City on the Nintendo Switch over a PlayStation, even a PlayStation 4? That's why I would say Nintendo and PlayStation aren't really competitors. But yeah, I mean, the only thing I have left to say to wrap this video up is just that Xbox should just straight up stop trying to compete with Sony when it comes to consoles at this point and just become a publishing studio. I mean, they've spent so much money purchasing different studios, and don't get me wrong, as bad as their console space is right now, Xbox studios in the past like 2 years have dropped some really solid games. Definitely way better than their past, you know, decade before that time. But they have been on the right track when it comes to games they're publishing, just not, you know, how they're handling those published games. So if they honestly want to stay in business, this is really the only course of action I can see them taking. And as for PlayStation, all I'm gonna say is that I hope they don't even come close to the same path as Xbox, and I hope that the lack of competition doesn't make them start to do some astronomically dumb shit. And that's really the only reason why I ever cared for the console wars to begin with, because me personally, I don't care what game a studio comes from. If it's a good game, it's a good game. I used to have both a PlayStation and an Xbox until I sold my Xbox because there was no point in owning it. But again, when competition starts to lack, especially in this space, it can cause problems, which is why I've been such a heavy Xbox hater and on their ass for the past 5 to 6 years or so now, because I don't want Sony to start stooping to their level. But yeah, that's my thoughts on this whole situation. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And yeah,